Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 8 of Sports Clichés with Craig and Jay. It's over here somewhere. Um, Big slate of games this week. A lot of crazy shit has happened. Almost makes me a little bit happy that I had a cold yesterday and we had to wait till today to let all the craziness happen.
Yeah.
How you feeling going into the week, my man?
Uncertain as all hell. This week, I mean, we've complained about weeks before. This week of spreads is pretty chaotic. Pretty chaotic week in general. NFL obviously they were in the trenches. I guess they've kind of figured it out now to where they're going to be ending mandatory testing for asymptomatic vaccinated players, which is probably a large majority of those that have come up with positive test results. So it really makes these lines really, I'm calling them nebulous lines because they're just kind of going all over the place. You're not too sure where they're going to land by the time the game's kicking off here. Yeah, and so it's gonna be a very interesting week. Who actually is able to play for some of these teams? It's some of these might be kickoff decisions. It's looking like just about. I think for some of these players, they need to still, like, if they have the ability to produce two negative results back to back, they're gonna be free. And so, like, I think a lot of these players that you're talking about, teams like the Washington football team, the Rams. These are teams that aren't even getting lines in their games right now because they don't know who the hell is going to play. So Vegas isn't going to give us a line on those. We'll see who actually is able to play for these guys. It's gonna, quite nutty this week. I'm definitely. I think we're gonna see. This is really gonna test obviously the depth of some of these teams. This is every season you got your injured teams. This year I think you've had it with the Ravens, the Titans, the Niners, teams that have been pretty banged up through the season. I think you're going to even see that more so with some of these other teams, I guess, that maybe they've been able to avoid the injury bug, but it's real hard to avoid the Omicron bug as what seems to be going around.
It's not just football either. I don't know if you've heard what's going on in the NHL. There's 5 teams are canceled till after Christmas. 2 more teams tonight got canceled for the next couple games, and it's going crazy in the NHL, and NFL clearly no different. So for those Tuesday games, are we just gonna call them heads up?
I think so. I have them written down as no lines. We can just call it. We don't even know who's gonna play potentially. So it's so tough, but we'll give it a shot. I think. This is some last week. If you tuned in last week to any to the show, me and Craig decided that we were gonna go with our gut for our picks, and we actually killed it. I ended up going 10-3. Craig went 9-4 on the week, so we're gonna stick to it. And what better time to do that than with a week when you have no idea who the hell's gonna play? So let's
That's
just
go. That's just it, right? We had to go with our guts anyways. It's not like anything else made any sense.
Yeah. All right. Do they have their head coach and at least 2 of their starters? All right, we're good to go. Let's run it, baby. Let's do it. Also, big news in this past week: Urban Meyer out. Couldn't go a season. Oddly enough, funny fact on this one: the Jacksonville Jaguars are hosting the Houston Texans this weekend. The Jacksonville Jaguars gained 3 more points on the line since Urban Meyer's firing, which is hilarious. Vegas kind of seeing the writing on the wall. I think that some of us have already seen with Urban's tenure there. Jacksonville being favored is already funny enough, but the fact that they even get more favored with him leaving.
I mean, I don't think I'm being too controversial here by saying it couldn't have happened to a better person, right? Like, what a piece of shit Urban Meyer is. It's just the more stories that come out about what was happening in Jacksonville, the more you go, of course that team's 2-11.
Well,
he's kicking his kickers pregame and fucking
So, here's the thing. I wonder because it's like this is a story that's come out kind of after the fact almost. This was like preseason, right? This
was early preseason for.
And I suppose if there's anything legal happening, then you don't want to come out and say anything. So there's some caveats to it. But what's kind of interesting about it is, like, I think this is, like, there's something with Urban, and obviously maybe he was able to operate in a different way in college. There's some to that, like, you hold all the power in that situation over your student athletes, as they love the term, as much as they could. The amateurism. They're
student athletes.
Making those motherfuckers show up.
Of course you don't have slaves, huh?
They show up to 3 classes in 2 seasons, and then they're fucking out. They're just like, you gotta kidding me. No, but there's probably a lot to that. It seems like the way he was kind of operating, he was calling out his assistant coaches like crazy. What have you won? Like, he actually hasn't won shit in the NFL. It's fucking hilarious to me. But
I had better assistant coaches at Bowling Green line is
I didn't see that. I didn't see that. That is actually
gold. He told one of his assistants, "I had better assistants than you at Bowling Green." Which,
motherfucker, you hired me.
Great line.
First of all, you hired me. Yes. Like, wait, is this the firing right now, or what is this? Are you just
what a fantastic line that is? I'll give him credit where it's due. If you're gonna go after someone, give him that line. That's a solid one.
That's a pretty good one. But you got that. Some of it, I wonder, is like, he obviously tried to treat this a little bit more like what he did in college, and you're coaching grown ass men.
Yeah.
Some of these motherfuckers, like, they ain't that much younger than you. They've experienced a good amount of football, and they've experienced a good amount of locker rooms and coaches. And, some of that rah bullshit that he was trying didn't really work out right. But I wonder if it's also, like, because he got off on the bad foot with, I think the first major, like, real big flag in the season anyways, was him not going back with the team, right? And then the chop house situation. And all that funny as hell. But the thing is, he didn't then come back to the team and own it. He fucking tried to bullshit his way out. It's like, Urban, bro, I see it.
Video.
It's right there. It's all right.
2021, dude. There's eyes everywhere.
I mean, if people wallow out the bar from time to time, you got to own it, though. Like, and the fact that you tried to bullshit his way out of it, he immediately lost any of the respect that they still had for him. He pretty much had lost at that point. He was getting laughed out of fucking meetings. Once you're getting laughed at by your players behind your back, and even I think kind of a little bit to him too. I don't think they like necessarily tried to hide it that much either.
No. The other story I heard was one about one of their defensive linemen. I can't remember which one it was, but he had said something along the lines of like, I've seen better linemen than you at college not go to the NFL, so you better show me some damn respect. And the lineman responded with, "Bitch, you ain't earned no respect." Yeah. And to me, that's Urban Meyer in a nutshell. He never earned the player's respect.
No.
He thought he was granted respect. That's not how it works. And honestly, it shouldn't be how it works in college. You look at a lot of the great college programs, Nick Saban earns his players' respect, right? I don't think there's any two ways about that. Urban Meyer thought like he was due a certain amount of respect, and he just wasn't.
Yeah, or it's like it's fine to take a look at a guy's success, even though it's not in the same league and not to the same level. Obviously, coaching college, head coaching in college is a different beast than what it is in the NFL. That's 100%. Just going to be the case. But also, you could take some respect, as far as he's been able to be successful in that field, that almost in that industry, you could say. But this NFL is a different game, and so you get a little bit of that respect, but you have a lot to earn as well.
Yes.
And if you're not winning games and you're calling out coaches for what have you won, it's like, motherfucker, you haven't won anything either here. So what are you talking about?
That's true.
And then you get what I think is once that happens with the whole chop house and not going with the team situation and the lying about it after and losing that respect, is you don't have the ability to build up a rapport with players. And that's obvious in the stuff in the preseason. Like, if you had the respect and you get the buy-in with your team, I think there are coaches in the league that if they had a good rapport with their kicker, they wouldn't fucking kick him in the legs, which is absurd. Why would you do that to your kicker?
Honestly.
But you could give it, like, if you had some kind of rapport with that, I could see a head coach kind of will shove the arm like, hey, make some fucking kicks this week, and not in a mean way, more of just like as a motivator. Way. And exactly, and I could see head coaches that would have that with their players. 100%. Absolutely.
And if you do it kind of jovially like that, a little punch, hey, gonna make your fucking kicks this week, right? It could almost do the reverse of what it seemed to do with Josh Lambo, which is it could take the pressure off.
Yeah.
Right, but, your coach comes up, cracks that little joke about you missing kicks, and it's like, okay, there's not as much pressure on me here, and it makes it. Kicking is 90% mental, right? Let's be honest. You make the NFL, you got a decent leg. From that point, it's 90% mental, and man, I don't know how you could be a kicker for a guy like Urban Meyer coming out kicking you in the legs, yelling at you to make your fucking kicks before the game, right? Like.
Well, it's amazing he didn't get fucking punched right there. I mean, obviously you're like, I guess you got to think as a player, like, you are in a work relationship, and that's kind of what Lambo tried to allude to, I guess, in his statement. That's a boss assaulting an employee essentially to that level, and that's true. And then kind of in the back, like, do you punch your boss in retaliation when it's your moneymaker though? With like, if you're going after my legs, like, it's like if someone went after my hands or like my ears or something like that, like something that I really need to be able to do my job.
Yeah,
it's going down. Like, no, you don't fuck with that, because that's my moneymaker right there. And damn shit with the kicker, you don't fuck with their legs. Like, that's absurd to me. I have no idea what that was all about, but it's probably for the best. It seems like Vegas thinks it's for the best for the Jags that he's gone. I guess the other part we'll dive into it just a little bit. I mean, what do you think with Trevor Lawrence now? Is this something that can be salvaged going forward with this team? I know Khan, the owner here, is, if anybody is willing to just throw money at this situation, it's going to be him. So I feel like they have the ability to dig themselves out of this. Obviously, it's a team game, and you got to get everything going together. But, I mean, Lawrence right now, it doesn't look good, but I think it looks better with Urban out of there at this point.
Yeah, they obviously have more problems than just Urban Meyer, right? That offensive line is a mess. And that's been a lot of Trevor Lawrence's problem, too. He just hasn't had time to throw the ball or really do anything, right? And when you're being thrown to the wolves like that, it's hard. But certainly having a coach in there like Urban Meyer is not going to help somebody's development, right? So get in a better coach, maybe somebody who's got a bit more of a proven track record with a young quarterback. Maybe you got something there, right? You still need to work on that offensive line. You still got to give them weapons. Like, let's face it, benching James Robinson in that game meant they benched the only weapon that team had, right?
Yeah, I mean...
So, there's that. Jacksonville needs weapons. They need a couple receivers, right? You do have a good running back. James Robinson is a very good running back. Right. Get him behind a decent offensive line, get some wide receivers out there. That you got pieces, right? But certainly it was never going to work under Urban Meyer, ever.
Yeah. I mean, like, you got to really... He would have really had to do an about face in terms of how he acted. That's the only way he could have redeemed it. But it was him. And that wasn't going to happen. That's a lot to say. But if he was able to take some humility and it really fessed up to his shit, start coming out and being straight up with his players and treat it more like, okay, I'm dealing with fucking professionals here. This is what every week is, I've heard the comparison. I know, McAfee, I can't remember if it was him or Hawk or whatever, but it's like, you're not getting the Arizona States or like the cup. There's no cupcake games in.
You're not going to be playing Butane and Cookman
Right.
next week. Yeah.
Motherfucker, you getting Bama. You getting Bama, you're getting Bama, you're getting Bama, you're getting Bama, and maybe in Ohio State. It's like...
This week they're playing Houston, so I mean, I guess that's your Butane and Cookman.
Yeah.
But even then, right? Like Houston, what if we're comparing Houston to college programs? Like at worst, that's a Cincinnati, right? Like at absolute worst, it's like
yeah. I mean, right now it's This is I would imagine this has probably been the only time they've been favored in like the last year and a half. Probably.
Yeah, I can't imagine it's been many times. They definitely weren't favored in the games they won, right? Because they beat Buffalo and they beat Miami.
Right.
Right. So I can't imagine they were
crazy.
favored in either of those games.
Crazy that even during that what was happening, they still pulled off those. I mean, granted, that Buffalo game was a shit show. But
oh my, that is a joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't imagine they were favored in either of those games. I can't imagine they were favored in any of their losses. They haven't played Detroit or anything like that. That's the only team I could think that they might have been favored against. But I don't know. It's just one of those things where, there was a clear cancer in that locker room. You had to get rid of him. Hopefully that's the last we ever fucking hear of Urban Meyer. Listen, as a college coach, he wasn't even that great. Can we be honest? As a college coach, Urban Meyer wasn't even that great. This isn't like a Saban situation where you're talking about one of the greatest college coaches of all time. Hell, even Bobby Petrino came into the NFL with something behind him, right? Urban Meyer was a good college coach who went from elite program to elite program and kept them at the same level they were at when he got there. He never, it's not like Ohio State was an average program and he came into Ohio State and they became great. Or Florida was an average pro. They stayed where they were at before.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? A lot of people forget. With Alabama before Nick Saban, this was a team that was, struggling to get out of the basement of the SEC West. Right? Now they're at where they're just the dominant force. Right? There's a lot of coaches who have gone into programs that are good programs but are at struggling points and have taken them back to greatness. That wasn't even what he did, really.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he was never that great of a college coach. He was a good college coach, not trying to take that away from him. But he's not in the pantheon of college coaches. Yeah. And I hope this is the last we ever hear of him.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think there's a mindset. I think a lot of people would say, like, they would regard him as a pretty damn great college coach. That's just, I think, the public perception. You bring up a good point. He kind of more or less kept the ship afloat for those programs and moved from program to program.
Yeah.
Basically plateauing. Not maybe drastic dips, and that's good to see. It's kind of interesting when you got guys like Cliff Kingsbury, who's over in Arizona, right? He was Texas Tech.
Texas Tech.
Yeah, and I think you brought him up last week. Like, that's a guy, and maybe there's something to that. That's a guy who's coming out of college. It's showing that it does work coming over to the pros, but obviously coming from a little bit more of a humble program as far as Texas Tech. Texas Tech, while being like a ranked college program for plenty of seasons and being good, isn't a Bama or something like that. So perhaps that's a better translation. This is someone who is who was successful in college, but didn't have maybe the overflated ego or something like that you might be having at one of those major programs that doesn't translate to the NFL. I don't think that's necessarily the case with Saban, even though he dipped his toe in the water in the NFL and didn't really shake out for him. But I think there's something. He clearly has his teams back behind him in college. It seems like in a different way than maybe some other college coaches run their programs. So.
I would say Pete Carroll's another example of a guy who, started at Pacific, then went to USC, and both programs made them significantly better. He was out with his tail between his legs as he got out of USC, though. I mean, that was not a clean exit out of the system, but no. But you look at where USC was when he took over. Like,
sure.
I know we all think of USC as this perennial powerhouse, and they are now.
Wow.
They weren't in the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah, I mean they've had some rough seasons, but yeah, I mean in between. But yeah, absolutely, there was their heyday.
Yeah.
Those 2000s years, those were some fun ass teams to watch,
Yeah.
right?
And that wasn't the case in the late 90s for
Right.
USC, right? It's not a similar situation. I think there is something to be said for a college coach who can take over a program that has struggled and build it, right? And I think if you do that, it shows a couple things. It shows that you have some kind of a system that works, right? That whatever system you're running, that you have changed from whatever wasn't working works. It also shows that you have the ability to manage players, even though they're younger, right? There's still something to be said for taking players here's the thing, when you're at the bottom in college football, your recruiting classes aren't going to be great, right? I doubt Cliff Kingsbury, when he first came into Texas Tech, was getting top 20 recruiting classes every time. He's picking from the guys who everybody else is missing, right?
Yeah.
So there's something to be said about having that eye for talent, that ability to see beyond what other people see, right? So I do think college coaches can be successful in the NFL. We've seen a bunch of them: Harbaugh, Carroll, Cliff Kingsbury recently, right? It can work, but you need to be smart about who you pick, right? Like if you're just going to pick the guy who's at the all-powerful school, right? Urban Meyer, going from Florida to Ohio State, right? Going from strength to strength. You don't know what he's going to do when he doesn't have talent, right? You can see what a guy like Cliff Kingsbury is going to do when he doesn't have talent. You saw it in his first couple of years. Those Texas Tech teams weren't great, and he made them better than the sum of their parts.
Yeah.
Right? In the NFL, there's going to be years where you just don't have the talent.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think a lot of factors, going in. I think just week in, week out. I mean, I think you kind of don't even know on a given day. I mean, they're guys, they might have practiced well, they're looking great all week, and then you get on the field on Sunday, it's like, fuck, I'm operating at like 80% right now. I'm getting fucking worn out. I'm getting busted in this coverage, and so it's kind of the funny thing. And this was a good point. This was something I heard recently. There's a lot of this, we have this ability to really take a look at players and like, on a given week in a given game or something like that. Really take a snapshot of how they're doing in a given season. We look at stats all the time as far as, they got this many touchdowns, this many picks. They got this. This is how they did in their last game. You get these snapshots of players, but it's just like there's the human aspect to it, right? On any given day, I could wake up and I could feel like I'm going to work and I'm fucking flying. I'm getting shit done. I'm working at, more toward my peak capacity. I'm hitting, close to 100%, that sort of thing. But then there's days where you're just going to be off and you're like, dude, I'm just fucking slog. I'm fucking making errors all over the place, typos and shit. And on the NFL field, that's just going to be exemplified more because you're dealing against, there's only so many people that are going to make the NFL. You're dealing with some real fucking athletes on, whoever you're facing off against, even lower, rated teams. And so a player that, might have that Madden rating of 95 or whatever, they could play like an 80 on a given day, and an 80 could play like a 90, So it's like there's just those factors you have to weigh into, and sometimes that just starts to railroad you, and all of a sudden you find yourself you're on 4-game losing streak, and it's like, damn, we had some talent on this team, and it's not fucking happening right now. Play calling and all sorts of other shit could factor into that, but sometimes it's just like on the field, what's on the field is just what it is, and sometimes you don't always have it in the same way. And now with, obviously like the COVID and just injuries in general, that sort of thing, the depth of these teams are being tested so much that you're really not even seeing the same team. Like you talk about week 1, week 2 of the regular season here. This is a completely different team. Probably in, of that starting 22, probably like 7-8 of those guys at least are really having to fill in. Like it seems like from team to team, not really looking at the stats hard like that, but like there's a lot of fluctuation and a lot of guys that have to step up off the bench and stuff. So that's being tested at its most this week. The NFL hilariously trying to kind of get the rules sorted so that doesn't happen so much. But I mean, yeah, some of these teams are going to be really, really looking different from what they typically have
I think
previous
the
weeks.
frustrating thing too for some of the teams who are playing these teams with COVID issues is like, well, hold on. Why are these rules different for certain teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Freaking Denver last year had to play a game without a quarterback,
Right.
right? They had to start a wide receiver at quarterback because all of their quarterbacks had COVID, and they were like, no, you have to go. And then you look at what's happening in LA, for example. They have a few cases, sure, but they're not. It's not what like Washington couldn't play. They literally have so many players on the COVID list. They do not have enough players to field the team.
See, I thought the Rams had like 25 players out.
I last I heard the Rams was like 10 or 11.
I thought, yeah, I was hearing at least yesterday. This was like midday yesterday. That the Rams actually had the most at like 20 plus.
Oh, God, they added 10 yesterday. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
and the thing is, these numbers are then going to fluctuate, and they'll probably
Yeah.
go down now because the NFL just instated these rules. I don't know how the hell this is going to fly, like with the PA and that sort of thing. That's kind of wild to me, like that the NFLPA is having any give in this situation. I don't necessarily think they should, but you know,
But yeah, I know
it
at
is
one
what it
point
is.
Washington had 36 players on the COVID list.
Wow.
That's why I think when everybody heard the Washington game got moved, they were like, okay, it's a 52-man roster. They have 36 guys on the COVID list. You do the math, they don't even have enough players to field the team,
Yeah.
right? Unless people are playing both sides of the ball. So, fine. That one's cool.
All right.
But there's been some of these moves that's like,
The Washington Philly game will be moved to a 7-on-7. Uh,
we're, we're
we're
gonna
go-
play Blitz.
yeah, we're gonna play the other direction of the field. It's gonna be like PE, where you play the half fields and you do it
You know,
on the side.
you know the college football overtime rules where you start at
There
the
you go. Yeah,
35, you score, and then
this
you
will
start
count.
at the other
This
team's
will count.
35.
But yeah, we're now gonna kick off. Uh, you guys are gonna get plenty of rest. It's gonna be a 2 minute
Yeah,
play clock, so your guys can fucking get rested between plays. And yeah, you gotta play both sides of the ball.
yeah. Uh, I don't, I don't know. What's the plan here? Because like 36 guys on that COVID list. They activated 4 today, so they're down to 32. By Tuesday, what are we honestly thinking they're gonna be at? Like
Well, that's the thing.
20?
You're talking about asymptomatic vaccinated players. I think
Yeah, they'll get
actually
over it quick.
and that's the thing is with that statement, you are taking the testing out of it for the most part. Asymptomatic as far as I don't know if that's I guess actually that's a question. How much testing is still going into it? If is it like a physically like obvious symptoms, or is this something that still requires testing? I think what the NFL is trying to do, right, is circumnavigate any kind of testing for those players that have been vaccinated, and that's a
Which is
large
really
majority.
dumb, but
It's a large majority of those players, and exactly, it doesn't help in the spread situation, but you have all of a sudden those numbers that are in the 30s, in the 20s for players that aren't there. A large majority of those are probably players that have been vaccinated that don't feel bad, but have
yeah.
come up with positive tests. Therefore, under the new rules, they're in. So that's the thing. That Washington could have less than 10 players potentially
Yeah.
on this list by the time they kick off on Tuesday, I guess now it is.
Yeah, it's Tuesday evening. What a dumb idea that is. Can I just throw
Well,
that out there?
yeah,
Like,
right. No.
what are we doing? Like, okay, I get it. You want to play the games, but you got to do it smart, right? Here's the thing. I won't go too much into this, but we got really lucky with COVID, right? The human immune system where it's at now because of modern medicine is not particularly strong. Pandemics like this are a possibility with how narrow our immune system's differences have become from person to person, right? I think we're like under 10,000 unique a unique immune systems, right?
Mm.
Like
Oh.
it's wild. So we need to get ahead of these curves, not behind them. Just because we got lucky with COVID and with this strand of COVID that's not as deadly, not as serious,
Right.
doesn't mean the next one will be, right?
Yeah.
So what the NFL is saying is like, because we're fine now, we're just gonna let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what a horrible stance to take.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, and and here's the thing. What's funny about it is, yeah, okay, they had to play, previous season with, mostly empty stadiums and all that, and there was money lost, but they
That's
still made
all
a
this
shit ton of money, but now they see that they're really making some money with stadiums being back full again, and they don't want to give it up.
More money. Yeah.
It's like, oh no, we can't go back.
Uh,
Yeah,
I feel like the NHL's having the same issue, but at least they're being a little bit smarter about it than the NFL.
a bit.
I don't know. I hate this.
I think the NBA should go back to the bubble. I think NHL needs to really look at it, and yeah, it doesn't seem like the NFL wants to take that stance, but it's they really got to look at shut this thing down. But yeah.
It's getting bad. It's getting bad. And if they're just not going to
They're
test
not going
players,
to. They're just not going to. Yeah.
God forbid, just throwing it out there, guarantee not every NFL player is vaccinated. We know that because some of the players we thought were vaccinated, cough, cough, Aaron Rodgers, are not. What happens if the next variant is worse?
Right. Well,
right? And you're letting these guys play through, not testing them because, we want to get our money. And then the next variant is deadly.
Well,
what are you going to do then?
Yeah. and I think they are just, we'll come to it when we come to it. That's their stance on it, clearly,
and
with what they're doing
such
right
a
now.
bad stance, right? Like it's such horrendous management by the NFL of this, but you're right. At the end of the day, it's all about the almighty dollar, right? And that's all this decision is by the NFL.
Right. Exactly.
Shall we move on to the games at least?
Yeah, let's try to take a look. We're gonna take a look at this week's slate. We're gonna try to figure our way through these horrific lines. There's a couple good ones, and it's like, and some of these teams have seemed to dodge it. Basically, like there's teams that really haven't had players coming up with positive tests. So there are still some pretty solid games on the slate. It looks like that we don't have crazy adjustment due to COVID protocols and that sort of thing. But there are plenty that still do. So let's jump in. And right here, right off the bat, first game gonna be coming up later tonight. It's going to be awesome. And actually, about 3 hours or so from now, we're going to have the Patriots going into Indy, face the Colts here. Colts going to be hosting and getting -2.5 here at home. Pretty damn good game against, some of the AFC's best right here. Myself, I've been pretty high up on as far as the Colts being able to make this run toward the end of the season. I think they definitely look like a playoff team. This is a hell of a test for them. New England, they've kind of looked like the class almost of the AFC at this point. Really kind of going on this a pretty good tear as of late. This one was definitely probably the toughest one for me to pick right off the bat. Just because you're talking about two pretty damn good teams that have seemed to mostly find their stride.
Yeah, 100%. You got the Patriots, who right now do look far and away like the class of the AFC, the only team that in recent times has been able to show any level of consistency in that conference, right?
Yeah.
Versus the Colts, who themselves look pretty damn good in recent times. And in particular, Jonathan Taylor, if we've said it before, if the MVP wasn't a quarterback award, he would definitely be one of, if not the favorite for it.
Yeah.
Right? Makes this game really tough. Ultimately, for me, what I look at here, Patriots missing Damian Harris is going to hurt, but they got like 3 or 4 different running backs who can take touches. Um, I look at the Patriots as a bit more of a complete team than the Colts. The Colts, obviously, they run the ball like absolute beasts. But if you can find a way to even subdue Jonathan Taylor, I don't think you can take him out of the game completely. But if that dominant Patriots defense can just subdue him, do you really trust Carson Wentz to pass through that Patriots defense? I really don't, right? And then on the defensive side, Colts run defense has been fine enough, but their pass defense has had holes, right? Teams have been able to pick them apart through the air, especially when you get down to the red zone. They give up a decent chunk of points. The Patriots right now look like a more complete team, offensively and defensively. They just look like whatever the game throws at them, they can adapt to it a little bit better. And in games like this, you never know what that game's going to throw at you. I think I'm fading Patriots here. I like how complete of a team they are versus the Colts really needing to do the things they do well in order to win.
Yeah, this is definitely, obviously this is a -2.5 spread. You're talking, pretty close to a pick'em game. Although we have seen 2-point wins that have been those backdoor covers, those deadly covers. So not quite a pick'em, I guess, in that regard. What looks really good, obviously, I think right now for the Colts is they are a fairly healthy team.
Yes, 100%.
They're getting a lot of their folks back. Unfortunately, Ryan Kelly, their center, going to be out. It looks like this game. Antoine Woods on the other side, nose tackle, defensive tackle, they're going to be is on the IR with a calf injury. On the other side, you got looks like Ronnie Perkins just entering the IR there with an ankle injury. Damian Harris, who's been popping off pretty nicely as a running back for the Pats, is listed as out right now.
He will not be playing.
There, Yandi. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that last name because I'm going to screw it up. Going to be out. Their tackle.
Kajust. Yandi
Kajust. I was going to absolutely butcher that when I tried it. So good. I'm glad I didn't. Thank you very much. But so a little dinged up there. Here's one thing to say about Carson Wentz. All right. Granted, I think, absolutely. There, and especially early in the season, you talk about that Titans game with that horrendous left-handed throw. And he's had some fumbles for sure. He's kind of screwed around with it. But, I mean, you take a look at the pure quarterback line of 22 touchdowns, 5 picks. I mean, pretty fucking good line for a quarterback right there, you got to say. Throwing 226 a game. Obviously, we talked about Taylor. Mainly team that's been getting healthy. Pittman Jr. has been leading that receiving core, but you also got Ty in there who's starting to kind of come back into a little bit better form there. He's been out quite a bit, I believe, through the season. So I actually, honestly, at home, you talk about two teams. I don't think you really go wrong picking either of these teams in this matchup. You got two pretty damn good teams here. Coming off that 31-0 shutout on Houston, I really like the Colts here. So I'm going to go Colts on this.
I will say only completing about 60% of his passes, though.
Right.
It's Carson Wentz.
You get what you get. Yeah, you get what you get. Exactly.
That Patriots defense, man, it's stout. And if you're going to be missing your passes against J.C. Jackson, he's going to burn you on it.
What you got to love with Carson Wentz, he is a true, gunslinger. So
100%.
When you got a guy like Taylor, and then you got a guy who's just going to bomb the ball, there's some good dynamic stuff that could happen out of that team.
For sure.
The Pats, though, are not that. Obviously, they had the ability to be dynamic. Not saying that. They had that fucking glorious run against the Buffalo, in what was a game that wasn't supposed to have any explosive offense. That still had something to it. And it's not like Matt can't sling it down the field. That's absolutely the case. But you think between the two teams, which one has just a little bit more of those kind of real pop plays like that?
It's Indianapolis.
Probably the Colts. But you got yeah. I mean this is a great matchup.
It is.
Right here at this point, and with two teams that have been able to somehow sidestep and get around the craziness that is COVID right now. This is a nice game that we'll have tonight. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be over hanging out with the folks. We're going to be watching this one, so it should be a good time for sure.
It might be the game that's able to take me away from college football.
Yeah, at least pop in from time to time, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's keep it moving. We'll go right into starting on that early Sunday slate, and who knows how the fuck these games are going to move around. Watch one of these games be on Tuesday, anyways, because some shit happens. Although, actually, as we were talking, I think those lists of players are going to go down more than up, so these should be fairly set. But here's the one at the beginning of the crazy lines that we're going to be seeing. Carolina going into Buffalo here. Panthers coming in at 5-8. Buffalo Bills at 7-6. Buffalo -12 getting at home here. Giant spread.
Many points.
This is a Buffalo team I was talking about them before. As far as they are in a very precarious situation, and if they didn't take that game against the Bucs last week, they're going to be staring themselves at a really rough playoff scenario here. And at 7-6, they cannot feel comfortable. This is a game they really need to step up and show that they're still one of the good teams in the AFC right here. I don't know if they have. It's clearly not working out the same way it was from this past year. Panthers have obviously been going through all their mess, but I think Buffalo, this is going to be kind of a statement game for them. I still think they can be a good team here. They are playing a fairly beat up Panthers team that really, they got a defense they could lean on a bit, but they got nothing else really going for them. So even at this giant spread, I think I like Buffalo in this one at home.
So the interesting thing for me with that spread is what you mentioned. The Panthers defense is quite stout. Mm-hmm. That's a decent defense, and it's fairly healthy for the most part. Only AJ Boye out.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody else on that defense looking more or less good to go. They're not going to give up a ton of points. They don't. They don't give up a ton of points to anyone. I'm with you. I doubt their offense can do much. But, I mean, at a 12-point spread, if they get 20 points, you need Buffalo to get 32 against that defense, right?
Right.
That's where it bothers me. Is the spread is just so big that if Carolina's offense can even be poor, like not completely abysmal, they might be able to put up enough points to cover that. That being said, I think I'm with you on this one. I can't trust Carolina's offense to not be abysmal, right?
Yeah.
And I actually think the Bills are going to get a lot of confidence out of that comeback against Tampa Bay, only to fall a little bit short, obviously, in overtime. But I still think they're going to gain a little something out of that. I think they're going to put a little bit of juice into the tank with that. I think they see the outlook ahead and behind them and recognize this game as must win gets. And I think there's a chance they could put up a big number on Carolina, even with that good defense. I think you're facing a very upset Buffalo team who's going to come in here wanting to do big things. I'll take Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I think with everything except their rush defense, I guess, is the only knock you could have a little bit on Carolina. But it's just amazing a team with that good of a defense. This should have been a year where they were probably looking a little bit better. And Bucks are going to run that NFC South right now, but this could have easily been a team that was slotted in second and looking a little bit better for the playoffs right now.
You look at that playoff race right now.
At 5-8, it's not like they're out though. So yeah,
Carolina and that defense, and you go, fuck, if they had any semblance of an offense, they'd be running the wild card race right now, right? Like, you're in a division with the Falcons and Saints, neither one of which really knows if they want to win games or not,
Yeah.
right? You got a defense that's really good. Even that run defense, which like you said, little bit not as good, but it's still not bad. It's not like they're getting the ball ran down their throat every game, right? Like I don't get how that defense can't win you enough games to make a 6 and 7 wild card slot right now, but that's just how bad their offense has been. It's been non-existent at times. And that's when it's been good, it's been non-existent. Because when it's been bad, they've been turning over the ball like crazy and giving the other team points. I don't know. The Panthers are such a weird team to me.
Yeah. It's not looking too great, but yeah, exactly. Right there in the NFC. Who knows if they're able to rally here? That would be insane, but it would make those playoff pictures for both conferences just that much spicier with those. Let's keep
Honestly, the most NFC thing this year would be the Carolina Panthers making the playoffs despite having no offense whatsoever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's like who's going to be back there? That's going to be that'd be something. But yeah, I mean, it's not like we haven't seen it before. Teams with if your defense is able to keep good offensive teams, if they're able to perform out against them. You're talking about the difference of a couple plays there. And if you're able to, pop something off and, maybe a couple tricks up your sleeve, that sort of thing to get you some points, that could be the game. It's something that we've seen. I think it's, the Seahawks against the Niners. That's something that popped for them. They got that early, that punt fake touchdown. You got the shenanigans that Detroit was pulling earlier. I'm trying to remember that one game. It was one they unfortunately dropped there, but gave it everything they could.
Baltimore, was it the 1917 Baltimore game?
Might have been. Yeah. It was
they
punts,
faked 2 punts,
onside
they faked
kicks,
2 punts,
just going at it, just throwing everything, the whole fucking kid, everything but the kitchen sink sort of thing. So, possibility for something like that, and. Yeah, I mean Carolina. Yeah, 5-8, still in the hunt in the NFC. We'll keep it moving right along. Another giant spread game. This one, kind of interesting. Both teams coming off of losses, probably a little bit different fashion for both of them. I think still kind of disappointing in how they both played coming off the game beforehand. Arizona Cardinals going into Detroit, into Ford Field, to play the Detroit Lions. Detroit, we know, only one win on the season. Arizona sitting at 10-3. And Detroit getting 13, plus 13 at home here. Giant spread, as to be expected with the Lions. They've been getting giant spreads all season, which has helped them in their against the spread record. Did call it last week, I will say. Did call it with Denver.
Now, hold on. Hold on. Are we just going to ignore the fact that Detroit lost 10 players to COVID before that game? Or are we just going to let that one slide? They were playing Detroit's backup team. Detroit's starters aren't even that good.
Did call it. We won't, though, because, that had been a thing. Detroit, obviously, they've been pretty beat up. Everybody kind of points to the DeAndre Swift. Now they're out without TJ Hawkinson. For a team that already probably isn't fielding as much talent as their opponents with their starters in, now having to go to the depth, and the depth probably isn't very much there. Arizona Cardinals coming off what you would say with as many problems as the Rams were having going into that game. Surprising the Cardinals came out as flat as they did. And really kind of, 30-23 at the end. But having watched that game, that felt like a pretty secure Rams win, right? They were looking pretty good throughout the game there. Pretty surprising for the Cardinals. Everybody kind of thinking they were going to take this and run away with it. Rams were going to keep it a little bit closer. But now starting to get a little interesting at the top of the NFC West right there between those two squads. Giant spread. Detroit, though, and they've been able to keep it close throughout this year. They just lost their other big weapon basically for Goff. I believe Detroit. I saw something. Lions will be without 12 of their 15 highest paid players in Week 15. You get one of your tackles, you get Goff and somebody else basically, and that is it for your best people you're playing the most. Hopefully your best players. So an already pretty hampered squad is going to be without more. In that way, even though it's a giant spread, I gotta take Arizona.
It's got to be Arizona. I listen. I've been riding on the Lions train all year. It's worked for the most part, except for 1 week that we won't talk about. They're a better team than their record shows, but a significantly worse team than the Cardinals when they're healthy, right? And now they're not even close, as you mentioned. Like, of those, listen, if you were to name Detroit's top 15 players, I don't even think you'd put Jared Goff in there, right? So, even though he's one of the top 15 paid players, it's not like you're like, oh, well, thank God we still have Jared Goff.
Yeah.
It's...
He's your starting quarterback. Is what it is. You got to chuck him out there.
Yeah,
and he's not going to have much to work with.
Longer, I don't think. I think he's the starting quarterback for this year alone. I feel for the Lions because they've been competitive with teams all season, right? And you know that if they had a full complement of players, they would go out there and give the Cardinals hell because they've done it to everybody this year, right? The Lions haven't been a walkover for anybody except for the Eagles, right? And now you look at this team, they don't have that much talent to begin with. They're absolutely destroyed by injury. This is going to be ugly. I know the Cardinals are missing a few guys too. DeAndre Hopkins obviously out. James Conner doesn't sound like he'll be playing. Zach Ertz is still questionable. But they have so much talent there anyway. Like, it's funny. It's one of those situations where both teams come in a little bit banged up. But the Cardinals have so much talent that they can afford to be banged up. Whereas the Lions, all their talent is banged up. Yeah. Right? It's not a great matchup. I wish I could say the Lions at home plus 13. They're going to cover the spread like they always do. And they're going to come out and play hard, but talent's just going to win this one out.
Yeah, absolutely. Arizona already, good, and they have some depth to them. Detroit was going to have trouble even with that, and just having that many more players out for them is going to be rough. So, got to agree on that. Keep going, keep moving. We got the next up on the slate, the New York Jets going down to Florida, take on the Miami Dolphins here. Miami actually getting minus a 9.5 here at home. Pretty giant spread for them for 6-17, but you are facing the Jets, who are 3-10 on the season.
And they are better than a 6-7 team, let's be honest. The Dolphins' recent trend shows you kind of more of what we thought the Dolphins were than what they started the season.
Absolutely.
Right? I think what we're seeing now with the Dolphins is more realistically what they should have been all year. For whatever reason, they came out flat. But this is the Dolphins team that we thought they were. We thought everybody coming into the season, I had them in the wild cards. I don't know about anybody else. I had them ahead of the Patriots.
Well, I mean,
right?
Their season has been pretty nutty. They actually, crazy enough, you open up a win against a Patriots team there, beginning the season, and then you go on to lose 7 straight, and all of a sudden you're staring down 1-7 on the season. But they have rallied back. They have won 5 straight going into the bye week now, and so they're coming off a bye, going against a New York Jets team that is. I mean, they look every bit of 3-10 as they are right now. They've managed to pull out some surprising wins against teams. They've gone through, as we've talked about before, their quarterbacks. The fun
Bring back
Mike White and all that. Obviously the Wilson experiment is not a good one right now for them. Giant spread, but yeah, this is a Miami team that is starting to really show out here. I can't see them not continuing their win streak here against the Jets. I like them to take this one, and yeah, to get him by double digits.
Me too. The Jets. Listen, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think the Jets and Texans are by far the worst teams in the NFL. Right? I think what was happening a lot with Jacksonville was them being hampered by a coach, right, and all the external issues that came with that coach. But I think if you look at teams purely based on not only who they play but how they play, I think the Texans and Jets are by far the two worst teams. And I know the Texans have the Jets have pulled out a couple upset wins, but let's be real. This Jets team, they don't have a ton of talent to begin with, and they don't play like they play like they have less talent than teams who are less talented than them. And it's this is going to be the rest of their year. I mentioned it last week. They're a big pit of sadness and despair that it's not going to get better until you try to change that culture. I don't think you can do that middle season, right? I think that's an off-season thing where you start to make those changes. I think the Jets' sadness continues. I probably don't think they win another game this year. I haven't seen the rest of their schedule, but they're certainly not keeping this game close with a Dolphins team that looks hungry, that looks motivated, that sees the playoffs now dead ahead of them. That sees the Bills, by the way, dead in front of them, right? And they're probably looking at this going, we might not even be out of this division race yet, let alone the playoff race.
Right. Yeah. This is one of those ones where Miami, like, it's been great to have their defense step up, kind of starting to show out more like they had been showing. Tua is a great little surprise as well, starting to come a little bit more to form. With everything that was happening early in the season, as far as the craziness with the potential Deshaun trade and all that stuff was floating around, the kind of lack of belief in Tua there that was being shown, very very surprising. Usually when you get some of that stuff happening, a team will just kind of fade off, but they've stepped up nicely, and I think I would have. When you talk about those teams that are floating in that 500 range or a little bit better right now, I mean, yeah, Miami has every bit a chance to really challenge Buffalo for this as far as that second spot there. So
yeah, for sure.
And let's keep it going with another really bad New York team, as we got the Dallas Cowboys going in to New York to face the Giants.
Speaking of teams that are somehow still alive in the playoff race despite being absolutely horrendous.
Yeah, I mean that 4-9 is a little bit
flattering.
Well, it feels so much more distant too, than the 5-8 that we have with the Panthers. But yeah, so Dallas 9-4, leading the NFC East. Giants 4-9. So mirrored records here for the two teams. Daniel Jones still out. I mean, how much more does he move the needle for the Giants?
Doesn't.
Not much. This one, I mean, a Giants spread again. Daniel Jones would make me consider it a bit more as far as an 11-point spread. Keeping it a little closer than that. But without that, I can't see it. Going against these giant spreads is a little rough, but I got to imagine Dallas takes this by a couple scores here. So I got Dallas to go by more than 11 here.
If I am the Giants, I would play Jake Fromm in this game. Jake Fromm was a guy who came out of college with a little bit of hype around him, right? Came out of Georgia, had a great career at Georgia, came into Buffalo, never found a spot in Buffalo, got cut. Now he's with the Giants. Why not give him a run out? Yeah. Right? Worst thing, listen, Daniel Jones isn't the option. Mike Glennon's never going to be the option. Worst case scenario of playing Jake Fromm here is you find out he's not the option. But what if Jake Fromm plays well? What if he finds that Georgia form? What if he starts throwing the ball around, right? Maybe there's something there. Worst case scenario is you find out there's nothing there. Yeah. He's only 23, right? If I'm the Giants, I'd play Jake Fromm. Let's start with that. Cowboys over the last month have been kind of trash at times.
Yeah.
Right? They cannot find any consistency on either side of the ball right now. Right? You look at that Chiefs game, defense plays great, offense doesn't show up at all. Then you go to the Raiders game the week after, offense balls out, defense can't stop them to save their lives. Right? There's no consistency. And then we talked about it during the Saints win, right? Yeah, they won that game. They had a quarterback throw 4 picks, and somehow the Saints were in that game the whole way, right? That just can't happen. And then obviously last week they get the win against Washington, but again, they're up big, cruising, should be easy, and they let Washington pull them back into this game.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on in Cowboy land. And listen, this shouldn't even be a question, right? An 11-point spread against this Giants team shouldn't even be in consideration. But with the way the Cowboys are playing recently, that's a lot of points for me to trust the Cowboys to actually win by.
Yeah.
Right?
Big spread.
I think I'm going to take the Giants on this one. I just don't trust the Cowboys to win a game in a blowout like that right now because they're just not playing like they can.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of one of those things, despite all that, this is probably a Dallas team that's going to go out there. They're probably actually not going to look too great in some regards, but I just don't think you have enough on the other side to even make this a relatively close game. That's the only problem I'm seeing. I actually agree with a lot of your points. Dallas has been a very disappointing team. They have looked pretty flat, and yeah, the inconsistency on either side of the ball, you just don't exactly know what you're getting. I think despite all those things, they could have a flat game in one of those areas against this Giants team and still probably beat them by a couple tutties. That's my feeling. But it's absolutely understandable for this to be a one-score game too. So I can't really argue with that. I did at one point have New York Giants scribbled in, maybe as like I could maybe see it, but then when it was like, okay, yeah, Jones isn't going to be in there. I don't really think he moves the needle that much, but you have a little bit more of an idea of what you're getting with Jones, and he could pop off from time to time. But yeah, I mean that's gonna be rough for Fromm back there, and I think Dallas still has enough weapons to where they should stomp this team out. But
100%, they should beat the absolute dog shit out of the Giants, but I don't know if they can right now. I think there's some real issues in Cowboy land. I think it starts with good old Mikey boy.
Oh yeah. Well, if someone if he could just figure out when to call a fucking timeout, that'd be a great thing for him if he could just figure that out. Let's keep it going. Let's keep moving right on. This is a very interesting one because I think this is the only time we've seen this all season. We got the Tennessee Titans going into Pittsburgh to face the Steelers. Tennessee sitting at 9-4 here.
It's a pick'em, right?
Pittsburgh sitting at 6-6, and that works out perfectly. 6-1, anyways. And it is a true pick'em. Pitt getting no points either way at home here. So a true coin flip game. We actually are going to have a few of these because we have some games with no Lions as well this week. So those are essentially going to be pick'ems as well for us. You got the Tennessee Titans sitting at 9-4, like I said, just coming off of a nice little 20-0 win. A nice little shutout against the Jags. Jags looking like the Jags. Pittsburgh actually coming off against a loss against Minnesota, which that was a pretty nutty game from what I remember. This was back on the 9th, so it's been a little bit, but I remember that going a little back and forth. Steelers have been
every bit deserving of a
6-6-1. Yeah, exactly. This is the epitome of a 6-6-1 team right now. They just they just have this weird, like, with as much, because they got, like, when Ben is on, he could still sling the rock a little bit. They have some weapons as far as offensive players that you have to like, but yeah, they've come out really kind of flat, and I think losing to Minnesota looking every bit as bad as they were looking, and then still being able to come out and beat the Steelers team, it doesn't bode well for them. I know Tennessee obviously has had their injuries. They've looked pretty flat in some of their games. But I have to lean towards Tennessee here, just generally having a better run this season, and Pittsburgh just kind of being a team that's pretty flat. It's kind of hard for me to really believe in the Steelers against any team that you would consider good. So I'm going to go with the Tennessee on this straight up pick'em game.
I 100% agree with everything you said.
But
do you consider Tennessee without Derrick Henry good?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if I do.
I consider him good. Like,
I mean, this is a team that is coming off of losing to the Texans a couple weeks ago, getting stonked by the Patriots. Congratulations, you beat Urban Meyer last week, but like,
right.
I don't know if this team is good without Derrick Henry. I really don't. I've made it clear numerous times. I don't trust Ryan Tannehill. Right? I don't think he can do it on his own. Their running game has been okay without Derrick Henry, but certainly not enough to carry Tannehill's inconsistent arm. Right? I think I got the Steelers in this one. I don't like the Steelers. I can see why this game's a pick'em. This is the definition of a pick'em game. You got two teams that you have no idea what they are on any given week. But I think the Steelers' defense is going to be able to frustrate Tannehill, right? And I think that's going to cause Tannehill to do what he's been doing the last few weeks and throw some picks, turn the ball over. I don't think the Steelers are going to score a lot, but I think they'll score enough to win this one outright.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reason why the spread is nothing.
Yeah.
You gotta give the Pitt a little bit of something because they will be playing this game at home. Tannehill is going to have to deal with a Pittsburgh defense that they've been able to get after a little bit right this season. So yeah, second in sacks on the season. So
and TJ Watt's back too.
Right.
That's going to be a big advantage there, right? TJ Watt, he's going to get to Tannehill.
Yeah. I think as their other backs have been getting more touches, with Nichols and Freeman back there, what are you going to do? You can't replicate a Derrick Henry, obviously. You can't even build him up the classic Moneyball feel. You can't even build him up in the aggregate, right?
Yeah, you can't recreate him in the aggregate.
Yeah, but you could do what you. I think they can scheme around what those guys do well if you're able to get him some space. He does have his talented wide receiver combo. I believe they're both good to go. So
yep.
He's gonna have some weapons out there still. I just have that slight bit more trust in the Tennessee Titans team than I do in the Pittsburgh team. That's basically where it comes down.
That.
Yeah, that's what it really
comes
down to.
I don't like this Pittsburgh team at all.
No.
But
and that actually is the interesting thing is I actually had a strong feeling that you were going Tennessee in this because you have it's not like you've been burying this Pittsburgh team, but you've been calling it as it is, in which they really haven't looked good. Yeah, they haven't looked good.
I don't like this Pittsburgh team at all. I think even if they sneak into the playoffs, they're a duck for anybody who gets them in the first round. Defense is good, right? Yeah. It's a good defense, but it's not a world-beating defense, right? We were talking about that Panthers team, right? Where that defense is like really great and that offense can't do anything, right? I don't think the Steelers defense is world beating. I think it's got TJ Watt, and that makes it look a lot better than what it's actually been over the course of the year. It's good, right? I'm not trying to say any different, but I think you take TJ Watt out of that defense and it's just good, right? Yeah. You add TJ Watt and now all of a sudden the numbers look ridiculous because TJ Watt's got 16 sacks on the year already. Yeah. It makes it look it makes the defense as a whole look better than it actually is. It's a good defense. I don't think it's a world-beating defense, but you don't need to be a world-beating defense against Tannehill, right? He's gonna make mistakes without that safety line of Derrick Henry behind him. And I think we see him make a couple more mistakes in this game. I think Ben Roethlisberger is old and not the same guy, but one thing he is smart, right? He knows when to hang on to the ball, when to throw the ball away, when to not make that mistake. I think that's going to be the difference in this one.
Yeah, it should be. Definitely a coin flip game. Pretty. It's funny to not see a point given either side, but yeah, a true flip. Let's keep moving right on to it. The next game on the slate that I have here, we got Houston going into Jacksonville. The urbanless Jaguars there. 2-11 teams facing off. Two of the worst ones in the league probably. Jacksonville getting -5 at home, a line that has improved since Urban's firing. I do love that. I think a lot of folks are on Jacksonville for that factor. You kind of have, you almost have what the Raiders had factor earlier in the season. When you lose your head coach, if you have somebody who's there as an assistant coach to kind of rally it up, that team could have a nice little spark to it. I think Jacksonville has been getting a lot of love in this game, oddly enough, for only being a 2-win team. This is a true tank bowl for sure. I think I have to fade the public on this one. I think I gotta go Houston. Only reason I feel this way is just because, what has either of these teams shown? Houston has, at least with their wins, it's seeming like their offense put a little something together, right? They put up the 22 points against Tennessee. Obviously, 22 points isn't that glorious or anything like that. I suppose Jags did put up 23 against Miami in the midseason, so it's not like their win wasn't without any offense. Yeah, this game sucks. I'm going Houston, man. I guess. Let's be honest. I'm trying to be back and forth, but this game, this is gonna be bad. This could be a tank bowl. Truly, who wants to actually win this one here between the two teams?
Houston, because they don't have their first round pick.
Oh. A little bit more reason, I suppose. Yeah, I'm going Houston because I think a lot of people are a little bit more on the Jags just for that anti-Urban factor.
Houston is playing the worst quarterback I've seen in the NFL in recent years in Davis Mills,
right?
Which makes it hard for me to pick Houston. On the other side, Jacksonville has a group of assistant coaches who we just heard we're told that they are not as good as the coaches that Urban Meyer had at Bowling Green, who are coaching this team now. What are we actually getting out of that? I don't know. Hold on, I got this. Give me Houston.
Houston, all right. The coin. It comes out, and can't really feel good about either team on this one.
Oh, this game sucks.
Yeah. Let's keep moving. We'll go right into this one. We already talked about fucking Jacksonville, and actually we already hit on Houston too. We talked about both those crappy teams too much already. Let's go right into it. This one actually is pretty good, pretty enticing. Given both teams sitting at 7-6 here. Cincinnati going into Denver to face the Broncos. Broncos getting -3 here at home. A little surprising on that regard, I think. Cincy, obviously, that crazy game against the Niners that they just came off of, one which they weren't looking good for an entire half of football there, turned it on in the second half to tie that game up. And despite getting 3 in overtime there, weren't able to hold off the Niners. And so a little bit of a crushing loss there, but also impressive in the regard that they were able to get the offense clicking. Denver just destroying the Lions. Lions obviously they weren't anything close to their 100%, so that's already going to be a tough one for them. With both teams sitting here at 7-6, obviously a lot of playoff implication on the line here. Both of them sitting, I guess, with tiebreakers just outside of the bubble, but yeah, obviously a lot of things could change there. You have 5 teams actually sitting at 7-6 in the AFC. Myself, I really liked how Cincy played. Kind of watching that game, they didn't really look the same in that first half. It was kind of surprising. I thought that team would have a little bit more pop in the first half against the Niners. Niners really did lock down pretty well as far as their overall defense is concerned. Obviously. Running game a bit. Didn't see nearly as much of Joe Mixon as I thought we would see in that game. But Niners' run defense was playing pretty well. I really like the I like the Bengals here. I like the Bengals going into Denver.
I also like the Bengals. Denver has shocked me this year. I'll fully admit that. There was a point after that loss to Baltimore where I said I didn't think they were going to win another game outside of the Detroit game.
Right.
And they've done fairly well for themselves. Beat the Cowboys. Now, obviously, in that game, the Cowboys beat themselves, right? Anybody who watched that game, I think, could tell you that the Cowboys beat themselves in that game. Like, it's not even like the Broncos defense. Like, I know you see the 16 points, but there were guys open all day, and Dak was just missing them, right?
I think that's another thing, is that Denver defense is really fucking good.
It is a stout defense. That's what I mean. Like, that Cowboys game, the Broncos defense didn't even play their best game or even close, right? It was just the Cowboys were that off.
Yeah.
It is a good defense, no doubt about it. They can certainly keep you close. I know they put up a lopsided number against Detroit's B team last week, but they were playing the Detroit Lions B team. I don't think you can put much stock into that result. There was also the Demaryius Thomas factor. And I know there's not... I know a lot of people will look to dismiss that, but but when somebody like that, who a lot of these Broncos players have played with,
right,
or have been around, right, that galvanizes you, right? So there was something there, I think, no doubt. I think that team really wanted to get a win for Demaryius Thomas. And I think this is a very different prospect, though. This Bengals team is significantly better than the Lions. This is a Broncos team that over the last couple of years under Vic Fangio, when games matter big, they lose big, right? They haven't been able to get over that hump under Vic Fangio. I don't think it continues here. I will fully admit that they've surprised me, and I'll give them some credit where it's due for getting to the point they're at. I don't think they beat the Bengals here. I got Cincinnati.
Yeah, pretty in agreement. I mean, and this is, there's a reason why this is a -3 spread. I think this is a pretty good call by Vegas. This is a pretty... I wouldn't be surprised if Denver was able to hold home court here. And that'd be pretty goddamn impressive, honestly. Like, if they're sitting at 8-6 after this week, after a win against the Bengals, like, you gotta say, like, damn, that... Who wants to face that defense in the playoffs as your first...
That's what I was going to say.
First week, right? Like, that's rough, man.
They don't have much of an offense to speak of, really. Teddy Bridgewater's been... poor for the most part this year, right? Like he can't move the ball forward enough. But that Broncos defense is so goddamn good that if they can put up 17 points in a December-January playoff game kind of thing, are you confident you can score more than that? I don't think teams would feel like that. Right? It's that good of a defense. I give that Broncos defense a ton of respect for what they've been able to do this year, but I don't think this is the game where they buck the trend I was mentioning of losing big games.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely feel you on that. Let's go right into it. Here we go. This is the game of the week for this podcast because we got on one side, we got a Niners fan, and on the other side, we got a Falcons fan. Here we go. We got the Falcons going in to Santa Clara, face off against the Niners. Niners catching -9.5 at home. Giant spread. Giant spread for this one. Niners obviously coming off of that overtime loss or overtime win we were talking about against Cincinnati. Atlanta actually picking up a nice little win against the Panthers in their previous week. It's a battle of two teams still right there,
very much in the playoff race.
Falcons, they've had some up and downs, and they've looked like they're completely out of it at one point, but now, sitting there 6-7, looking pretty decent. Niners themselves looking real down at one point in the season, have rallied back, and defense that's starting to show out, starting to overcome some of their earlier injuries. We know where I'm going. We got the Niners, baby. Even at 9.5 points, we got them at home. We got the fire lit up. The only thing that's concerning, obviously, we got a decent amount of injuries on this Niners side. DJ Jones, who's actually been very explosive coming in on much more of a prominent role on that inside than previous. Unfortunately, questionable with the knee. Dre Greenlaw and stuff is out. That's no surprise. Greenlaw hasn't even really played. Al Shazier actually looking doubtful this week, which is a little bit of a concern as far as that linebacking core for the Niners. Getting some of their DBs back a little bit will be good, but still going to be out without Mosley, so you're still in that situation. And Ambry Thomas, who had to fill in and cover Jamar Chase last week for the most part, had a couple brutal penalties in that game, actually, is going to be questionable with a concussion. So still some question marks there in the secondary for the Niners. But I got to keep riding with my squad there, so...
To me, it's so crazy how things change in NFL games.
Right.
If you think back to about, it was 35 seconds left, and Garoppolo throws a guaranteed pick right into the defensive back's hands, and he's going the other way, and he dropped it. And from that point on, Garoppolo didn't miss another pass.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking about going from real question marks around a 6-7 Niners team that just lost 2 in a row, feeling pretty damn good about a Niners team that pulls off a big overtime win against the Bengals, looks good in overtime. Against the Falcons team that, let's face it, 6-7's a little bit flattering, right? They're not,
It's impressive. It's impressive they've hung around, dude. That Falcons team is not, and what a season to do it in. When this is the time when it's like, man, if we could scrap out, we could just get a couple more W's here, we're actually in the playoffs. That's how this Falcons team's been able to do it so far. But yeah, I think it is. It's a little bit more than we were expecting out of them, right?
Yeah. Falcons are, for the first time this season, relatively healthy. Missing Eric Harris still hurts, right? Dante Fowler might be out. That's going to hurt. Especially a defense that this year has already been a little bit iffy at best. You missing a couple guys like that, that's going to hurt. Hayden Hurst being back, I mentioned it last week, that's going to be big help for Cordell Patterson. Right, you have Hayden Hurst back. You get a big physical, a more traditional tight end who can open up some lanes for Cordell Patterson, who's been kind of our, if we're gonna do anything on offense this year, it's gonna be through Cordell Patterson. Right, playing a tough defense, but a little bit of a banged up defense. And obviously, as you mentioned, Al Shazier and Greenlaw being out. Greenlaw expected, Al Shazier maybe a bit less. Uh, Linebacking core a little bit banged up. Maybe you can get Hayden Hurst out there lead blocking for Cordell Patterson. You can bust open some plays. 9.5 is a lot of points in a game that I think the Falcons are going to keep close for a lot of this game. However, I do think the Falcons are going to do the thing the Falcons do a lot, which is keep a game close for 3 quarters, look right in it, look like they got a shot, and then just fall off. Right? The problem with teams like the Falcons who just they're playing above their talent level is it tires you out, right? The guys who, like, let's face it, the Falcons have 3 guys right now. It's Matt Ryan, it's Cordell Patterson, and it's Kyle Pitts. You stop those, you stop Patterson and Pitts, game's over. The Falcons can't do anything, right? I'm very impressed with the fact that the Falcons have been able to hang in games. They've been able to keep games close. I know that Buccaneers game, they lose by 13. That was like a 3-point game the whole way.
Yeah.
Right. And then the fourth quarter fell out. This game's going to be very similar to that. I think this is going to be a 1-score game, whole way down. Niners put up a couple in the fourth quarter to make it look uglier than it probably is, but the Niners will cover the spread, I think.
Okay. We got him, folks. We got him.
I hate the fact that I have to do it. I was so looking forward to this game being the Falcons versus Niners. I want to be pro Falcons. You're going to be pro Niners, but I just can't. Like I said, it's just amazing how much that one pass changes the confidence level completely. Because let's face it, that interception goes back the other way and the Bengals win that game. Niners lose 2 in a row now off the bounce, right? Probably don't have as good of a feeling around the team as you do right now with them beating the Bengals in an impressive overtime win and probably feeling pretty good coming out of it. It's the NFL for you, right? It's just the way it works in the league. You find ways to gain confidence, and for the Niners, they're going to have a big confidence boost, I think, coming off of that overtime win.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, and it's just one pass, you know. It's just like you think, oh, was it just like a split second? You know, it's the classic any given Sunday. You know, a half second too soon or too late, you don't quite make it. Yeah. A half inch here or there, you don't quite get there, and that's probably what that was. It was probably, oh, shit, in my release, I just hung it up, you know. And if Jimmy's done anything, he's kind of overthrown balls. But yeah, I mean, obviously you got to give some credit for the defense being in the position for it. But that was just it. It was just like one of those.
Yeah, and it was right in his hands, man. It like literally one of those things where 9 times out of 10, that's a pick six the other way, right? And for some reason in that game, the football gods decided, no, Niners are going to win this one. He drops it, and Garoppolo didn't miss another pass. Yep. And again, shouts out to Garoppolo. I'm not trying to disparage Garoppolo with that, right? I think to get that throw out of your head, come into overtime, and not miss another pass is even more impressive.
No, you know, actually, that's one thing. Jimmy G, he's kind of unflappable. Honestly, like even going into the OT, you're talking about, fuck, we were leading this game by a couple tutties here. Like, what the hell happened? All of a sudden, it's kind of slipped from your grasp. Cincinnati's now tied this up, and it's going into the next possession. And this is the last possession of the regulation right there, where they were able to drive it down, and it should have been over right then. Jimmy was smiling on the sideline as he was warming up. It's good to go.
Ready to go.
And so, you know, he for everything you kind of give the guy about you know, a clutch factor or what have you, I think he actually he's pretty goddamn poised. And it's no surprise, like he will have a bad throw. Though, you know, out of 10 passes, you might get one that's a little off. And that's just kind of been the case. He is mostly pretty much on target there. He threw a couple beautiful balls. I mean, you talk about
that overtime, he was untouchable.
You got Kittle obviously going up and getting you one right there in the regulation, but then he had that one on third down to where he throws it low for him. avoids him getting blown up by the safety, like keeping his receiver safe and getting it through like into a tight window. So yeah, you get all that with him as well. And that's always been the case with him for the last few seasons we've had him. You take that you take the he's not going to be perfect. He is going to have probably a bad throw in a set of however many passes, but for the most part, able to still sling the rock. Let's keep going. Let's get right into it. This is a very interesting one because this is a starting quarterback situation that they lost him early last week, and it was quite a valiant effort by the Baltimore team here. But you got Green Bay, the Packers, going into Baltimore to face the Ravens. Ravens getting +7 at home here. Unfortunately, Lamar Jackson hasn't practiced all week. Harbaugh has left it up in the air as a game-time decision for Lamar to start, but it's looking like first-team reps have been taken by Huntley. I think a lot of people feel pretty good about Huntley, honestly. He's actually gone out there in a backup role, and he's looked decently. A couple of silly fumbles, getting loose with the ball.
He's Lamar Jackson 0, right? Real Lamar Jackson look 0 of the talent.
Damn.
I mean, that's what he is, right? BJ Huntley is fine. He fits the system because he is just Lamar Jackson light, but you're still missing Lamar Jackson. The thing with the Ravens is they're a different team from drive to drive, right?
Sure.
And it's almost impossible to know which Ravens team you're going to get. Are you going to get the Ravens team who are going to play decently well, who are going to move the ball down the field, who have this explosive offense?
Yeah.
Or are you going to get the Ravens team who are going to go 3 and out and look abysmal doing it and probably lose 5 to 10 yards in the drive? You never know.
Yeah.
Right? What's the spread on this one?
This one is a +7 for Baltimore at home.
Still like the Packers.
So yeah, I think it's a pretty big spread because I think Vegas has to have the understanding that it's going to be Huntley back there probably.
Yeah.
You figure that moves a bit if Jackson is
if
able
Lamar's
to go.
playing, I don't think they get 7.
Right.
I still think the Packers are the favorites regardless of who plays. Because even with Lamar, the Ravens have been terribly inconsistent this year.
Yeah. Interesting thing, this is a Packers team that I think within their last few games here, obviously their offense has been popping pretty well, even in the loss, obviously, to Minnesota there. Surprising loss they took. And they did have a 17-0, not an offensive explosive game, but a pretty dominant win, obviously, over a pretty beat-up Seahawks team. The Kansas City loss before that, the Jordan Love game, unfortunately. So that was a little bit of an anomaly, right?
Yeah.
This is a Packers team that has, you would say probably about midway through the season, early part of the season, their defense really showing out. And now the offense has been the one to turn it on. This Ravens team, no matter who the hell they've tried out there, apparently is good for about 20 points, and just about that. It's very
no more, no less.
Yeah, so I gotta, with that, it's like Rodgers-led pack that doesn't seem to be too terribly dinged up, looking pretty good, across the board as far as their injuries are concerned. Yeah. Give me the pack.
Yeah, I can't believe it's not Lamar Jackson is probably not going to be able to do this, and I don't know. Even with Lamar Jackson, I think I'd still like the Packers in this matchup. The Ravens are the ultimate anomaly team for me this year, right? Because talent-wise, they should be much better than 8-5, and the way they've played, they should be much worse than 8-5. So they just end up at 8-5, I guess. I don't know. It's weird.
Let's keep moving right along. This was an immediate pick for me. As soon as I wrote this down, I immediately had my pick for it. We got the New Orleans Saints going into Tampa Bay to face the Buccaneers. Buccaneers getting -11.5 at home. I immediately took the Saints.
Tom Brady's hurt.
Tom Brady's hurt.
Got a shoulder injury.
This Saints team has shocked the shit out of the Bucks before in this
They
season
hate
as
playing the
well.
Saints.
Hate playing the
Hate playing the
Saints.
Saints.
They got him dialed in for that. I think you got another week under the belt for a guy like Taysom. I like the Saints at least keeping it within 10 points here. So give me the Saints.
I think I also like the Saints.
Wow.
There is
Nice.
no designation for Tom Brady. He should still play apparently,
Yeah.
but he's got a shoulder injury, right? And we have seen guys with shoulder injuries who it's like, no, I'm fine, and you're clearly not. Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott when he first came back from the hip injury, same problem. Came back, he's fine. He clearly wasn't. The Bucks do not like playing the Saints. They're 1-3 with Tom Brady against the Saints, right? And their only win against the Saints was in the playoff game. It's a team that for some reason just knows how to play them. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback. Now, you say that, but they've never played them with Taysom Hill at quarterback.
Right.
If
And that
BJ
hasn't
Hunt-
been a fun experiment for a lot of it, right?
if BJ Huntley is Lamar Jackson 0, real Lamar Jackson look, 0 talent.
Isn't it TJ?
Taysom Hill is just diet Lamar Jackson. He doesn't look like Lamar Jackson or taste like Lamar Jackson. He's just nothing. Oh man, Taysom Hill's bad. I don't know. I don't think this is going to be a high scoring game, but the Saints find a way to keep Buccaneers in games and end up beating them. So I'll go with the trend on this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's just kind of the situation they more or less kind of pigeonholed themselves into as far as New Orleans is concerned. You get Jameis back there, looking fine for a lot of those parts. You know, he had a Jameis game every now and then, but obviously that team was still moving. The Kamara injuries on and off have hurt the team. Obviously, that's been a factor. And what was funny is that there were points where it was, you know, when this team was kind of full, that Taysom was taking touches away from Kamara. And then you get them both back healthy, and you're hoping that it could. But like we spoke about before with Taysom, the ability to use him in a gadget sort of format as opposed to playing him for 4 straight quarters against the team is going to be completely different. You could only do so much to kind of shelter him from his weaknesses at this point. And yeah, it's like it feels like the New Orleans Saints set themselves up to have a QB1 and 2 QB 2.5s. Yeah. Like you can't really have any confidence in Simeon or Hill back there, but at least you give another week to Taysom Hill with reps. So I feel like that will help. This team will have a little bit more identity. I imagine you're going to get Kamara's going to be some touches, although obviously this Tampa Bay team, great run defense. But yeah, you got Leonard Fournette, I believe, out this week.
Yes.
So you're going to probably be looking to Jones, maybe a bit more, folks like that. I think they even have like Giovanni Bernard back there and stuff. So like, we'll see what their backfield looks like. Yeah, Brady.
Rashad Perryman, by the way, it actually just came across ESPN's ticker as I'm watching the college football game here. Rashad Perryman is on the COVID list. He is out.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, I just. This is one I saw it. I'm just like, just the one trend, one thing that has been actually kind of consistent is this New Orleans Saints team kind of has the number of this Bucs team. So this will be an interesting one. I think they'll at least keep it within 10. So,
for sure.
And let's go. This isn't quite the lineup as far as the timing of the games, but this is the last one with a spread. So we'll just go right into this one. This is the scheduled Monday night game. Minnesota Vikings going into Chicago, face the Bears. Bears getting +6 here at home You talk about two teams with losing records: 6-7 for the Vikings, 4-9 for the Bears. Uh, I mean, Minnesota, obviously, they have looked pretty bad in recent games, but they did just come off that nice win against Pittsburgh. That was quite a little surprise there. And obviously losing against the Lions, you gotta bring that up every time. Pretty much you bring up this team. A team though that does, as far as their overall offensive stats, they boast some pretty good ones. This Bears team does not. So myself, upon seeing this, I like Minnesota beating the Bears by more than 6 points.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. You kind of hit the nail on the head, right? I think everybody right now with the Vikings are still kind of shocked over that Detroit Lions loss, but
Right.
on the season as a whole, they've been a pretty decent offense. They've been able to pull out some big wins.
First in sacks, actually, as far as that defense. They can't stop anything else, but they can get sacks. And they get to the quarterback. Justin Fields is going to have a hell of a day back there.
And the Bears stink. They need
Yes.
they just need to get Matt Nagy out of there, right? Like similarly to what we talked about with Lawrence and Urban Meyer. I don't know how far Justin Fields can go if Matt Nagy's his coach. I really don't. This guy cannot call an offense. It's been a problem for the Bears for years now, and they're consistently average enough that he keeps his job. I think that time has come and gone. I don't think the Bears defense can do enough anymore to make up for Nagy's horrendous offensive play calling. I think the Vikings blow them out again, and I think we begin to see the procession of Nagy out of Chicago.
What a tortured tenure. I mean, obviously, yeah. I think there's Bears fan. I mean, I don't know if we have app around in the chat or anything like that. I know he would say, get him out of there. I think a lot of Bears fans have that sentiment. Crazy. Didn't he win 2018 Coach of the Year? I mean,
Stupid like
how
that.
how the mighty have fallen. But yeah, I mean, it hasn't been good. I think there's something to be said for this Bears team. Should be better. Just should be a better team this season than this record right now. It's as middling and as just kind of ugly as this NFC has been. They could easily be one of these teams sitting at 6 wins, being right there in the hunt. But they're in 4-9. They're just kind of right there on the outside. They're getting dangerously close to that Lions territory of just like not really being realistic at all for this playoffs. They'd have to go on a hell of a tear, right, to even be in consideration. So it's pretty much a wash at this point for them. But Minnesota has been incredibly disappointing.
Yeah, and I just think the excuses for Matt Nagy's offensive failures are done now, right? Like, for a while there it was, oh, well, he's got to deal with Mitchell Trubisky as a quarterback, and, oh, well, yeah, they don't have Trubisky, but, like, what a silly trade that was to bring in, Philadelphia guy. Foles, right? What a terrible trade that was to bring in Foles, and now you got to deal with Foles, and it's like, okay, I get that these are all nothing that you said here is a lie. Trubinsky was never going to be an NFL quarterback, and Foles was clearly a situational guy who didn't work. But it's like, okay, we just keep pushing along the excuse train for Matt Nagy. And now we're at a point where you actually have a quarterback who comes out of college with a lot of potential. A lot of people thought he was the best quarterback in the draft, not named Trevor Lawrence, right? Yeah. Falls on a platter to the Bears. And he looks lost out there, right? Yeah. And a lot of that needs to be put on Matt Nagy. It's time. It's been time for a while now, but it's definitely time now.
Oh man, yeah. It's. I think it'll be interesting. It's one of those things. I think it's Matt Nagy will have the if he is let go at the end of the season, you're talking about most likely. I can't imagine, it's not like he's going to be jumping into a head coaching spot. I don't know if he'd be even picked up as a coordinator at this point. I don't know if he should.
I would be willing to pick up Matt Nagy as defensive coordinator.
I
think.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. He could potentially. I don't know if he should. That's the
Shockingly,
thing.
he comes from an offensive background. I did not know that.
Is. Absolutely.
He was an OC.
Yeah.
What the No. Never mind. I take it back. Don't hire this guy.
Well,
ever.
yeah. So that was one thing I was gonna say. I thought he was actually offensive side.
He comes as an OC and the guy runs his offense like this. Man, don't hire Matt Nagy, guys. Just don't do it.
So I don't know because he's calling the plays now and it's not good.
No.
So, but yeah, you wait a year or so, that sort of thing. You might be able to get in somewhere fairly decent. It's kind of like you got to look for the spots in which you can get into good teams again, I think, for him. So it probably won't happen in the offseason going into a head coaching or even a coordinator role into next year. But you have the year, then you have another full season in which you could have offensive, defensive coordinators from good teams like a Rob Saleh go to bad teams to head coach. And now you got a vacancy as exactly.
Yeah.
Then he can find his way back in. He can be with a good team, so talent can then boost himself back up. He can maybe even find himself as a head coach in like 5 years. Welcome to hell.
Style.
Welcome to hell. Style. Exactly. Yeah.
Put me with talented players and I will do well.
But that's
it's my fault, not the players.
It's actually a formula that has happened before. It has worked before for coaches that their first run is garbage and they have to essentially take a few years out of a head coaching role, get with a good squad, start looking good, get back in head coaching. And now let's move it. The last 3 games here, we're talking about games that are not going to have a line. So these are pure pick'em games for us. These have been purely pretty much taken off the books because of all the COVID protocol stuff. You talk about teams like the Washington football team, like the LA Rams, like the Cleveland Browns that have been absolutely devastated as far as their rosters right now. So you talk about numbers to where they can't even field full teams, like kind of what we were talking about before. NFL has just gone and revised their rules, basically trying to remove testing from this whole damn thing. And if you're vaccinated and you're asymptomatic, you're basically going to get removed off that list, it seems. So they're going to try to open these games up a little bit more. They've been quite delayed, and we go all the way to Tuesday for one of these games here. But let's start out. These were just pure... I don't know. You gotta have a feel for how the team's playing in general. You gotta hope there's enough depth pieces there, and the teams that haven't been hit as bad, I suppose you could also lean those ways. First up on the slate, we got moved now to what is going to be Monday afternoon. It looks like a 2 p.m. kickoff right now. We got the Las Vegas Raiders at 6-7 going into Cleveland to face the Browns at 7-6. Cleveland's been the one devastated by the COVID list here. This one, knowing how it got, these rules have been updated. I know Baker has been a big advocate for this game getting pushed further, but I think also he's one of the ones on the list who does.
Case Keenum.
Yeah. So they'd be going with Nick Mullins at this point. Big Dick Nick
Mullins.
Yeah, we had our fun at points with the Niners, but that was ultimately that looked bad at points too. Could sling the rock though. The Raiders have been looking pretty goddamn bad. I mean, their offense is nothing without those some of their weapons. Waller being out. It looks like, I guess, he's coming back potentially for this game. The Browns have been, absolutely beat up and down. No line on this one, obviously. It's tough because of the protocol shift, and I don't know how it's all going to shake out. I feel like Waller coming back is huge for this Raiders team. They have been looking really really bad though. Like their losses have been pretty ugly. The Browns have been kind of hanging around. Man, I'm truly picking it right now. Give me the Raiders.
If the Raiders don't win this game, their season's done.
Right.
Like it's done.
Yeah. They've
The
been looking
Browns,
done with how they've been playing, but realistically, like their record's right there, right? So
shockingly enough, the Browns could end Monday top of the friggin' AFC North if they win.
right.
um, AFC North is 4 teams that just seem average that are all
Tough.
still playing for that spot, right?
Yeah.
It's this weird division right now.
Right.
Raiders obviously coming off of getting skunked by the Chiefs.
Ugly.
Really disappointing showing for them.
The thing is, it's like we were saying last week. You almost can't even take that into account. The way these fucking weeks have been going, the only consistency is the inconsistency. You almost like they could get skunked and then they could look halfway decent this week, right? It's so hard to judge it like that. It's a pure coin flip. Like in my head, I did the coin flip basically and picked the Raiders.
I'll take the Raiders because I'm with you. I think. Oh wait, no, I have Darren Waller as out.
Waller out. Wait, that changes things. Oh,
I have Darren Waller as out.
Last thing I heard was in. I heard questionable but likely in.
Raiders Browns game. Yeah, okay, give me the Browns.
Give me the Browns. Oh my god. Okay,
I think if Waller was in,
we're flipping flopping.
It legitimately made that big of a difference in a game like this to me.
Oh, their offense is nothing. They got nothing.
They need Darren Waller.
Yeah.
They need Darren Waller. They need a weapon. Obviously, they're missing Henry Ruggs big time, and they need something that gives their offense a little bit more of an identity. And Darren Waller would have been that without him. I still don't think that offense has an identity. My other reason for picking this is I do believe most of those Browns players on the COVID list with the new rules are just going to come off.
Yeah.
Because I'd be willing to bet of the 36 players they had on the COVID list, 20 to 25 of them are asymptomatic.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'd be willing to bet that most of the Browns on the COVID list will play. Raiders are going to be without Darren Waller. That's a huge... Give me the Browns.
Yeah. Next on the no line games, we got Seattle Seahawks at 5-8 going into LA to face the Rams at 9-4. Rams obviously coming off that pretty impressive win with a pretty banged up team off of against the Cardinals. The Seahawks actually coming off a 2-game win streak, of course, against the Niners a couple weeks ago. And then against Houston, handling them pretty well on the road there. The Rams are the ones who are banged up on the list right now as far as COVID is concerned. This would be, I imagine, if that was a little bit more clear, Rams would probably be catching quite a few points here. Probably this would be almost a double-digit spread, I'd imagine, for the Rams. I don't see any way I couldn't take the Rams and just a straight up pick them.
As a pick 'em, this is an easy one. They get Odell Beckham and Darrell Henderson are now off the list. There's still quite a few big players on the list, but I'd imagine a good majority of them, as we said before, come off because of the way the NFL's doing COVID now. The Rams are just such a better team, right? Like, coming off of an impressive win against the Cardinals, where they, again, it looks like the Rams are starting to get their new pieces figured in, right? That's 3 games in a row now that Odell Beckham's got a touchdown pass, or a touchdown catch, right? Von Miller's starting to look more and more like he's settling into the defense. They look like the pieces are starting to fit in now. This is a Rams team I was really high on at the start of the year. Obviously, they lost Robert Woods and brought in a bunch of new pieces and hit a little bit of a rough patch. I still think they're fine. They'll beat the Seahawks.
And then let's go to the last one here. The other Tuesday game, that Seattle LA one being one. This one, Washington going into Philly to face the Eagles. Both teams at 6-7 right now. Washington already having to deal with all the craziness with their quarterback situation. Also, I believe the team that has been dinged up on the COVID protocols. This is still a situation where I think this Philly team is. This would be a close game regardless. I do slightly like this Philly team a little bit more than Washington, so I got them in the pick'em.
Really, that's interesting. Yeah, I thought this game was pretty easy to pick them too. I think the Washington football team is just better than the Eagles, right? I know the Eagles are on a 3-game or a 4-game win streak here, rather. Uh, Broncos win at the start of it is impressive, and then they played the Saints, Giants, and Jets. Oh no, wait, they lost to the Giants.
Yeah,
3 out of 4.
Yeah,
3 out of 4. They lost to the Giants. That win against the Broncos impressive. Saints and Jets, they should beat them, right? They're a better team than those teams, especially the Saints without a quarterback. I actually like a lot of what Washington's done recently, and coming off of that game against the Cowboys where they looked like they were going to pull it out, right? They looked like they were going to come back and beat the Cowboys. Didn't quite get over the finish line, but they're coming off of wins against the Raiders, the Seahawks, Panthers, beating the Bucks, right? They've been really good in recent weeks. Mm-hmm. I just think Washington's the better team right now. Again, I'm not worried about the COVID numbers at the moment because I don't think they're going to factor in with the way the NFL is going about it.
Yeah, you know what's honestly a big factor for me for Washington as well is obviously the quarterback situation. It's looking not so great. The COVID thing. Who knows where that ends up being by the time this game rolls around on Tuesday. They unfortunately what happened in that game for Washington was at the beginning of that game they had Logan Thomas. By the end of that game, Logan Thomas is on the IR again. Done for the rest of the regular season with a knee injury. I think he's a big factor for this offense as far as Washington's concerned. So I think that's going to hurt this team in a pretty big way. And yeah, I mean, this would be a close game, I think, regardless as far as the a spread would be concerned. Philly being at home is going to help them a little bit as well. And yeah, with a little bit clearer of idea of who's actually going to be playing for the team, I like Philly.
Jordan Teamu's going to make Taylor Heineke's backup again. It's like he was in St. Louis.
Right.
I just think it's a better team. And honestly, I don't hate Jordan Teamu as a quarterback. I think he can, in a situation like this against an Eagles team that's not great, I think he can probably get the job done.
All right. So that is it right there. That's the full slate of games. Obviously, this being the first week without any teams on bye. So that is the full slate of games right there.
Yep.
On our splits, we have New England, Indy, which is going to be happen shortly from now. I have Indy. Craig has New England. On Dallas against the Giants, I have Dallas being able to go beyond the spread. Craig has the Giants being able to keep it within 11 there. On the Pick'em game, Tennessee going into Pitt, I have Tennessee. Craig has Pitt. And then right there, that last game, the no-line game, Washington against Philly, I have Philly. Craig has Washington. So we'll see how those shake out. See if we could replicate the nice little run we had last week. That seems impossible with these spreads and how everything's turning out here, but we'll see. Maybe we get lucky again. Should be I'm looking forward to tonight's game for sure. That's the.
This is the game of the week coming up.
And how this all shakes out, like it sucks that it's under these kind of circumstances, but with this craziness with COVID, we are going to have pro football Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. 4 straight days of football.
Then Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
We missed
that.
it. Yeah, we missed a Wednesday, and then we go right into Thursday, baby. It's fucking beautiful. we're getting very spoiled on this one. That really sucks though. These teams gotta play Tuesday, and then go into like a Sunday game. Like that's hell.
I think it might be worse. I gotta check the schedule again.
One might have a Saturday.
Pretty sure one of them plays on Saturday.
That's fucked. That's worse than the Thursday game then at that point. Because teams already hate doing like a Sunday into a Thursday night game. That's already...
Oh, no, it's the Browns who play on Saturday, so they go Monday to Saturday.
Okay. That's... Yeah. That's still very rough, but yeah.
Yeah. I knew one of the teams who got their game moved played on Saturday, but...
So yeah, that'll do it for us for the slate there. I know we have upcoming tonight as well is we got a little boxing action going on.
We got some boxing going on. It's the fight card that was way more exciting before an injury to Tommy Fury sees him pull out. But we still got Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley too.
Yeah.
Much like so if somebody listening to this is a boxing fan and hasn't seen a Triller card before, you need to understand how these things work, okay? This is going to be half a concert. Half, 2 of the 4 fights on this card are completely ridiculous. But you also get 2 kind of interesting fights in there, right? So, Triller cards, they're always insane. They're always crazy. But, starting from the top, you got the Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley main event. I have trouble believing Woodley's going to beat Jake Paul in that, I'm going to be honest with you. I really have trouble believing. Like, I don't know what Woodley can change from fight 1 to fight 2 to win this fight. And it's one of these guys who, it's not even like he was that great of an MMA boxer, right? He was always known more as a wrestler who had a power right? I don't think Woodley's going to beat Jake Paul. I don't think he's got a chance to beat Jake Paul. Which is a shame because Tommy Fury, Jake Paul, I still would have picked Jake Paul, I think, and it would have been a more impressive win for Jake. So I do... It kind of sucks because it does take the fun of that one. You got Amanda Serrano versus Miriam Gutierrez. Again, for people who don't know, Amanda Serrano, maybe the best women's boxer in the world right now. Certainly without Clarissa Shields in boxing at the moment, she is. An absolute beast. Hasn't lost in like 10 years. She's not going to lose to Miriam Gutierrez. But anytime that you get to see a talent like Amanda Serrano box, it's a good thing. I'll actually save the second fight on the card for last because I think that's the freak show fight. That's the most interesting one. But this card kicks off with legitimately one of the most interesting fights of the year, with Liam Paro and Yomar Alamo fighting each other, both undefeated, 21-0 for Paro, 20-0-1 for Alamo. It's this fascinating fight where you have Paro, who is not very technically gifted, but hits like a goddamn truck, versus Alamo, who is so smooth, his footwork, his jab, it's unbelievable, but he doesn't have a lot of power in there, right? So it's one of those fights where if the fight goes longer, like if we're in rounds 8, 9, and 10, Alamo's probably winning it, but Paro's got the chance to turn your lights off anytime in those early rounds.
Yeah.
It's a really fascinating fight. I think I would fade Alamo on this one. In fights like this, I think the guy with that good jab, that good range control, tends to be the guy who can control the pace, right? And if Paro can't get those big power shots out, if Alamo's able to keep him at jabbing range, I think he'll be able to win this fight. But the line itself on this one, for a boxing line, Paro's minus 140, Alamo's plus 120. For a boxing line, that's as close to a pick'em as you're going to see, because you don't get fights like that in boxing very often. It's a fascinating fight. I think that one's worth it. And then, we got the freak show fight of all freak show fights. Darren Williams.
Why are you calling it a freak show fight? I
mean,
granted,
Frank Gore.
Yeah. See, this is gonna be more legitimate than a lot of those celebrity like and that
It
sort of
will.
thing.
It will. But it is a freak show fight, let's be honest.
I mean, it's you know, when your headliner is fucking Jake Paul versus retired MMA fighter, um,
That's a freak show fight too.
but like at least like this is the cool thing. This is two guys who are like legitimate good athletes in what their first career was, right?
Yep.
Frank Gore, underrated, had to slog his way through those rough Niners teams, that sort of thing. But, obviously one of the toughest sons of bitches as far as the running back's concerned in the NFL. Damian Williams, like, being, at least I'm not too sure what his, his year in, year out and how much, but I think played for for quite a decent time as far as his NBA career was concerned. And like immediately upon coming out, started to train in like, was it kickboxing, MMA? Not too
Boxing.
sure. Yeah.
He's a very high level kickboxer. He's actually been training kickboxing jiu-jitsu well before he made the NBA, right? He was in college. He had been training. These are two freak athletes, right? They're two very good athletes. I did see the video, by the way, you posted of Frank Gore training. Fast hands. I worry about his feet. He looked a little bit slow moving around the ring. The funny thing is, when you look at moving from boxing, like from football to boxing, it's such a wild difference in what you need to do with your feet, right? In boxing, you really don't want to be light on your feet. You want to be heavier on your feet at times, right? You need to be able to move quickly. But where you're going to get power in your straight shots and in your hooks is when you really plant down on your foot and come through with your shoulder, right?
Right.
As a running back, being heavy on your feet is a real detriment to you, right? He looked like he was having trouble going from planting on that foot to getting back up and moving, right? Which is again something that you can't really pick up. That being said, his hands were ridiculously fast. It was an impressive video to see. I've seen both of them train. They both look surprisingly good for guys who have never boxed in their life. I think, like I said, this is the freak show fight of all freak show fights because it does have potential to look like boxing. Like decently good level boxing. I'm not gonna pick this. I have no idea, right? Until you see two guys who have never boxed before at an amateur or professional level in the ring, you have no idea what it's gonna look like. But training videos for both of them look pretty impressive, and I think there's potential here to look like an actual boxing fight. So I am excited for it in a strange way.
Yeah, I think it'll be a fun fight for what it is. Obviously, two guys that are this is going into a post your first long career, but two athletes still, and have put in time prior or while they were in football into some sort of fight, whether it's the kickboxing that Damian's been doing for a while. I know Frank Gore has had varied interest in and done varied work in boxing since he was a kid or a teenager anyways, so it should be fun to see. I'll be rooting for Frank Gore. Whether I can pick him with any confidence, that's a completely another thing. I wouldn't try to pick it.
I don't think anybody can pick that fight with any level of confidence, right? Because again, you see those training videos. It's like, I remember. So just to throw out a comparison, not similar at all, because both of them have been doing this for years. But I remember when CM Punk was making his UFC debut, right? And the training videos came out, and he looked really good,
Yeah.
right? His striking looked surprisingly crisp. His jiu-jitsu looked really good. And everybody was like, oh, hold on. Maybe this Punk guy's got a little something to him. And he didn't, right? We learned quickly he had nothing to him. So the thing about training videos is you're always going to see it at their best. Nobody's going to put out a training video of a guy who had an average day in training, right? Or even a guy who had a good day in training. You're going to put out the video of the guy who had his best day in training, right? The thing about boxing is maybe 1 out of 10 fights you're at your training best, right? More often than not, you're not at that level when you step into the boxing ring because there's so many other factors that go into boxing an actual fight rather than being in training. You have to sit in the locker room for 3 hours and get prepped, and there's the anticipation of going out. You need to walk out through the crowd, and then after you've done your warm-up, you're sitting for about 10-15 minutes before the fight actually starts, right? The conditions are never perfect. So how those training videos relate to the fight, it'll be hard to say. But should be fun nonetheless.
Yeah. And like you were bringing up, I mean, these are the things with these Triller cards. We talked about this. We were talking about this a couple weeks ago. Yeah, your headliner is fucking a Paul brother, whatever. And typically the co-headliner has been like an athlete or something like that against maybe a not so experienced boxer or another athlete. So that's kind of been a little gimmicky too, right? But those earlier fights, legit boxers. You're talking about good 10, 8-round fights. Guys throwing hands, very capable. So Triller kind of like it's funny to look at, and it's like it's half a concert too at the same time. Every fight, there is like a 15-minute set by a rapper or something like that. It's thrown in there. It's fucking hilarious. It's entertaining as shit.
It's fun.
And you got Snoop, and he's up in the fucking booth, and he's smoking blunts in front of like De La Hoya and shit like that, and they're just going off, and it's just like, this is a shit show. But in all of that, you have some legitimate boxers in there and some good matches in those early fights. So those will be good to see. I'm looking forward to seeing Frank Gore, Damian Williams, just because I want to see kind of how the guys that have had it as like a hobby, or it's just been something that's been alongside what they've actually done, but they're athletes, right? It's not like you're a fucking accountant that like was dabbles in boxing on the weekend.
It's not Urban Meyer going in there boxing.
Exactly.
This is a legitimate athlete.
So it should be fun to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, a lot of stuff going on tonight. So a good Saturday night for sure.
For sure. I think that's it for me.
I think that is it right there. We are going to be, a little bit shorter of an episode today, but it was, good. I mean, it with some of these games, it's really hard to even talk about them too much in depth, just because you don't even know what you got going into it. I'm definitely, with what we do have, we got Patriots Indy tonight. That's going to be a good one. We got some crazy nice little pickup games. I think Bengals Broncos is going to be fun to watch, and then obviously we got our Falcons Niners. That's going to be fun to watch.
If for no other reason than the fandom of the two of us coming head to head.
Precisely. And then games all through the week basically. Going into the holidays. So. I think that will do it right there. This has been, this was a lot of fun. This has been episode 8 of Sports Clichés. 8 weeks in. We'll see what we do next week. I have no idea what our schedule is going to be like next week.
I was going to say Christmas Eve next week.
Christmas Eve's a bad day for me, so not likely for Friday. And then early
Christmas
week
day would be obviously a no-go.
How about Thursday?
Yeah, I should be able to do Thursday.
Thursday is my first day off. So we're looking for Thursday, an early edition of Sports Clichés for next week, going into the holidays. This has been a good one. We will see you next week. This is Jay. That's Craig. There we go. That's great. See you next time. Have a good one.